Yeah, look at the calendar. It's 8/7. Of course, we're going to wish a happy birthday to a certain someone who was born on 8/7/87. Good morning to you. Good Wednesday morning. Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Penguins. It comes your way bright and early every weekday if you're into football and or baseball. I also offer daily shots of Steelers and Pirates in the same place that you found this. Sidney Patrick Crosby turns, you ready? 37 today. There's nothing that anyone can say that makes you feel older than Sid the Kid being 37. Sorry to keep rubbing it in. I don't mean to him. I mean to you and to me. And at the same time, it's anything but some sad, somber occasion because here we are, heading into his 19th NHL season, still somehow being able to appreciate, what would you call it, close to peak performance? I mean, I don't know how else you would define it. There's a universal agreement that he's no longer the best player in the league because there's also universal agreement that that's now Connor McDavid, certainly the most explosive offensively, by far the most productive offensively. But when I'm thinking of peak Sid, I'm just thinking of peak Sid as in his own context. This past season, Sid scored 42 goals. 42 goals at age 36. That was the most goals that he had scored since 44 goals in 2016 to 17. That season, of course, culminating in his third Stanley Cup championship. This was 42 goals. That was 44. That team was way better than this team, and Sid's most recent output came despite losing the best left winger he's ever had at the trade deadline. In fact, after Sid got over that little bit of unhappiness that he understandably, at least in my mind, experienced after the Gensel trade, he scored a ton of goals without Jake. And I can keep coming with the asterisks because it's not like he started gunning to get those goals. He went to the net. He did a lot of deflections, rebounds, tips, and stuff like that. But he also had 50 assists. And, by the way, was part of a power play that was absolutely awful all year. So he wasn't even able to get like the occasional, cheap second assist because somebody else would pull a tic-tac-toe to finish it off on the power play or anything like that. He was a force still at this age. And even that, to me, is not what was most impressive about Sid this past season and what I expect will be Sid for seasons to come. Because for me, it's not about the what or even the when in his career. It's the how and the why that almost doesn't make sense. This episode is brought to you by Bet Online, your number one source for all your summer sports needs this season, from Major League Baseball, golf, NHL, NBA playoffs. Get the latest odds and lines, including all team matchups, player props, odds on just about everything that's out there. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. Bet Online, where the game starts. If you go back through the history of hockey, the greatest of the great players, as they age, will find a way to alter their game, to adapt their game to their age, not just their conditioning. That's a must for everybody. I'm talking about style of play. And even the best player we will ever see in our lives had to do this when Mario Lemieux emerged from retirement. He did become a gunner. He did station himself down low and off to the left on the power play, going for a lot of bad angle goals, butt goals. You know what I'm talking about. And you could look at a clip of Mario from pre-retirement and a clip of him post-retirement, and there's a lot of differences. There were some similarities too, but there was a lot of differences. With Sid, nothing's changed. Nothing's changed. The same 18-year-old who put up 30 goals became the same 36-year-old who put up 40 goals. And by the way, Sid is the only player in NHL history to have had 30-plus as an 18-year-old and 30-plus at age 35-plus. And all you'll discern, as far as a difference goes, is that his passing and his vision are even more intricate, even more precise. He's able to do more things now than he was then. Now, I'll say it again. I'm not pretending that age and conditioning aren't factors. Sid's not as fast as he was. He's still really fast, but he's not as fast as he was. He's actually improved, though, in other areas, lots of other areas. So the single most exciting thing, in my eyes, about Sid at 37 is that I could see Sid still being this player at 38, 39, and even 40. And if you ask his teammates, they'll casually cite the 40 figure and say, you tell me why he wouldn't be able to do this in 3 years. Look at him. Look at what he's doing right now. When we come back, J1Q. Today's J1Q comes from Bishop, who says, all right, DK, explain how this team, which hasn't drafted a player in close to a decade, will make any impact at the NHL level, could compete the way the Bruins have, even as some of Boston's best players have left. Look, and for anybody who doesn't know, first of all, what Bishop's referring to is yesterday I brought up yet again Boston as being the model for the way the Penguins need to be carrying and conducting themselves right now. They have the older players that they have. They need to infuse the younger players that they either have or add along the way, and that can actually make them stronger because you can utilize those players' energy and enthusiasm and speed and all that other stuff. All right. Now, every time I bring up the Boston thing, it gets some blowback, and I get that to an extent because the parallels aren't perfect. In particular, the Bruins took care to not throw away all of their draft picks, and they continued the cycle of moving talent through their system. So when it came time for a Zdeno Chara or Tuukka Rask, or now most recently Patrice Bergeron, to call it a career, there were other answers. Not as good, but other answers. On top of continuing to have other core types on the main roster. What the Penguins have, of course, is core types on the main roster. Absolutely no youth, at least not until recently. And then on top of that, Kyle Dubas made the significant mistake last summer of going out and getting a bunch of 30-year-olds to add to a bunch of 30-year-olds. The approach that Dubas has taken this summer, including, I might add, in hindsight, the Jake Gensel trade, has infused at least some beginning of hope for a younger wave. It's not definitive. It's probably not ready, but it's there. And even if you look at some of the third liners, fourth liners that he went out and got, they were somewhat younger than the players that he was getting last year. The Nola Chari, Matt Nieto types. He went and he got Anthony Beauvillier. He made a project out of Jesse Puljujarvi. Those types of acquisitions where you're not necessarily, bringing in romper room, but what you are doing is getting younger legs in, legs that can still go. That could be, I think, an effective bridge. One that ideally buys some time for, say, Braden Yeager, who has actual NHL top 6 type talent. If not this coming season, then for sure next season. So again, if we're trying to time all this stuff, and I think we are with 3 years of Sid, if 2 of those 3 years have Yeager in there and he's performing and he's got an NHL type frame, which I really believe is still an issue with him, you could see a convergence like this. If Vasily Ponomarev or Ville Koivunen, the main 2 prospects in the Gensel trade can rise up sooner rather than later. And I believe, as I mentioned earlier this week, that Ponomarev can do that as soon as this season. Again, you're just starting to have more and more of those come in. And that makes way more sense than the whole Achari Nieto thing. That's my point here. It's not that it's ideal. It's not that it's, I know what it is that fans want and love, and that's to have this dream group of young 18, 19, 20-year-olds that everyone can get behind, a lot like when Sid came in, because Sid didn't come in alone. Marc-Andre Fleury and Brooks Orpik were here just before him. Yevgeny Malkin, Jordan Stahl, Chris Letang soon followed. So it was this whole big, beautiful wave of youth coming up, and you could just see cups and cups and cups in the future. And guess what? The cups eventually came. That's rare. That's not the way most teams do this. I appreciate the question. I appreciate everybody listening to Daily Shot of Penguins. We're going to do another one of these tomorrow.